75 years. The number seems unreal when you try it on for yourself. 3/4 of a century. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror staring at the wrinkles that furrowed my face. It wasn't that I hadn't seen them before. It was just that today they seemed especially deep. Birthdays always made me reflect on the years I'd lived and the opportunities I'd missed. I adjusted the knot of my tie and pulled on my jacket. Hilda always said gray suited me. It's been 8 years since she's been gone, and I still dress like she can walk into a room and judge my appearance. Old habits die hard, especially those associated with loved ones. There were voices coming from the living room. My son Prentice and his wife Adelia had already arrived. I could hear them arguing about something in muffled voices, something about the parking lot and how they were late because of it. Typical Prentice, always finding someone to blame. "Grandpa!" A cheerful cry and a knock on the bathroom door brought me out of my reverie. "Are you in there?" "Yes, Ezra, I'm coming out." I smiled as I opened the door. My youngest granddaughter, 13 years old, brightened at the sight of me. Her brown hair was braided into an elaborate braid, and her eyes sparkled as brightly as Hilda's once had. "Happy birthday!" She hugged me tightly, and I felt something warm spill into my chest. "You look amazing!" "Liar," I laughed, putting my arm around her shoulders. But it felt good to hear it. We went out into the living room where the others were waiting for me. Prentice, tall and trim with the first signs of gray in his dark hair, stood by the fireplace checking something on his phone. His wife, Adele, a slender blonde with impeccable hair and a face of perpetual discontent, was arranging some hors d'oeuvre on the table, though I had specifically asked her not to do so. The restaurant was booked for 6 in the evening. "Here is the culprit of the celebration," Prentice exclaimed playfully, tucking his phone into his pocket. He came over and hugged me awkwardly. "Happy birthday, Dad." "Thank you," I patted him on the back. "Glad you could make it." "Orson, happy birthday." Adele nuzzled the air near my cheek. She smelled like expensive perfume and something else. Maybe insincerity? "Where's Knox?" I asked about my oldest grandson, Prentice's son from his first marriage. "He'll be here soon," Prentice replied. "He wrote that he was delayed. You know those young men, always on the go." I nodded, though I didn't really understand my 17-year-old grandson. Knox had always been withdrawn and aloof, especially with me. Ezra was different. She was the only one who called me regularly just to see how I was doing. "Who else are we waiting for?" I asked, noticing that the table was set for 6. Prentice and Adele exchanged quick glances. "Ezra invited Vanity," Prentice finally answered, his voice sounding strained. "I didn't think she'd actually come." "Vanity?" Prentice's ex-wife and Knox and Ezra's mother? We hadn't seen each other in years, not since they'd gotten divorced. I always thought Prentice made a huge mistake leaving her for Adele. Vanity was a warm, caring woman, a talented cook. She dreamed of opening her own restaurant, but Prentice always ridiculed the idea as impractical. "I hope that's not a problem." I frowned. "Of course not," Adele answered too quickly. "We're all adults." The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Ezra rushed to open it, and a moment later, Knox and Vanity entered the room. Knox, a tall teenager with a perpetual frown, nodded at me and mumbled congratulations. Vanity, on the other hand, looked a little unsure, but smiled genuinely when she saw me. "Orson, it's so good to see you." She came over and gave me a big hug. "Happy birthday." "Vanity, I was really happy to see her." "Thank you for coming." Ezra insisted, she smiled, giving me a quick glance at her daughter. "She said that 75 only comes once in a lifetime and that you'd be happy to see all of us together." "She's right," I nodded. "I'm very glad." Vanity looked beautiful. The years had favored her. At 48, she was still slender, and her dark hair, now slightly streaked with gray, was gathered into an elegant bun. She wore a simple navy blue dress that emphasized the color of her eyes. Well, now that we're all here, why don't we go to the restaurant? I suggested, looking at my watch. Reservation for 6. Not yet, Prentice objected. Let's do the presents first, shall we? I noticed Adele giving him another warning glance. Something wasn't right. Okay, I agreed, though I'd rather have dinner first. At my age, routines mattered. We settled into the living room. Knox plopped down in a chair, keeping his eyes on his phone. Ezra sat next to me on the couch. Vanity sat in the chair across from me, and Prentice and Adele sat at the end of the table. "Who's first?" Prentice asked, and there was a strange note in his voice. "EA," Ezra volunteered, pulling a small package out of her bag. "This is from me and Knox." Knox didn't even look up, but I saw Vanity nudge him with her elbow. "Yes, from both of us," he confirmed without enthusiasm. I opened the package and found a beautiful leather diary with my initials on it. "It's so you can write down your stories," Ezra explained. "You always talk so interestingly about your work as an inspector. I thought it would be nice if you wrote it all down." "Thank you, dear," I was touched. "I'll be sure to use it." Vanity was next. She handed me a small box. "It's not too original, but I know you've always appreciated nice things." Inside were elegant silver cufflinks. "They're beautiful," I thanked her sincerely. "Very classy." Adele handed me a gift certificate to a clothing store. "Prentice and I thought you could use a closet upgrade," she explained with a strained smile. I thanked her, though I didn't much like the implication that my clothes were outdated. After all, my closet was quite decent. "And from you, Prentice?" I asked, noticing that my son was taking his time with his gift. "Oh, my gift is special," he smiled enigmatically. "But not now, after the restaurant." I noticed Vanity tense up. She obviously knew something. "Good," I nodded. "Then maybe we should get going. I don't want to be late." "You know, Father," Prentice suddenly changed his tone, "I think we should talk about something before the restaurant." "What kind of things?" I tensed. There was something in his voice I didn't like. Prentice looked at Adele, and she nodded faintly. "Adele and I think it's time for you to move," he said bluntly. "Move?" I asked, not understanding. "To where?" "To Golden Autumn," Prentice said. "It's a great boarding house for the elderly. I've already looked into it. They have medical staff, interesting activities for the residents, 3 meals a day." "A boarding house?" I couldn't believe my ears. "You want to send me to a nursing home?" "Don't say that," Prentice grumbled. "It's a modern facility with excellent conditions." "I'm not going anywhere," I said firmly. "I'm happy in my home." "Father, be reasonable." Prentice was beginning to lose patience. "You live alone in a 2-story house. What if you fall down the stairs? What if you get sick at night?" "I'm doing just fine," I countered. "And I have a panic button. If anything happens, the paramedics can be here in 15 minutes. "Anything can happen in 15 minutes, Adele interjected. "Besides, the house needs constant upkeep. You can't manage the garden anymore." "I hire a gardener once a month," I reminded her. "And I like gardening. It keeps me in shape." "Prentice," Vanity said quietly, "perhaps now is not the best time for this conversation." "When would it be?" he snapped at her. "When he's found dead in this huge empty house." "Don't be so dramatic," I was starting to get angry. "I'm 75, not 95. I'm in good health, I get regular checkups, and I'm perfectly capable of living on my own." "It's not just your health," Prentice lowered his voice. "This house, it's too valuable to just stand here. The neighborhood's growing. Real estate prices are going up. If we sell it now." "So that's what this is about," I felt my insides tighten. "You need the money from the sale of the house." "It's not just me," Prentice was starting to freak out. "You do too. With that money, you can live in a boarding house for years. The rest of the money could be invested. I could help with that." "I'm sure you could," I said sarcastically, "especially since your insurance company has fallen on hard times." Prentice paled dramatically. "Where are you from?" "Everyone in Suffolk knows everything," I shrugged. I hear you've lost some big customers. It's just temporary difficulties, Prentice said, and we've gotten off the subject. This is about you and the fact that you need help, whether you want to admit it or not. I don't need help, I cut him off. And I'm not going to sell the house I've lived in for 40 years, the house where you and your sister grew up, the house where your mother died. Leave Mom out of this. Prentice jumped to his feet. She'd agree with me. She's always been practical. Don't you dare tell me what she would have done. I stood up too, feeling the anger boiling inside me. You didn't even bother to come when she was dying. You were too busy with your new life with Adele. That's not fair, Prentice shouted. I didn't know it was that serious. You said she was just having an aggravation. I called you every day for a week. My voice shook with restrained emotion. I told you she was fading, but you were too busy. Enough! Prentice stepped close to me. You always do this, always making me feel guilty, my whole life. First because I didn't study hard enough, then because I chose the wrong profession, then because of my marriage, now because of my mom. When will it end? When you grow up and start taking responsibility for your actions, I answered calmly. That was the last straw. Prentice's face contorted with rage, and before anyone could react, his fist slammed into my jaw. I hadn't expected the blow and lost my balance, falling backward onto the couch. There was dead silence in the room. I slowly raised my hand to my face, feeling the pain throbbing. "Prentice!" Vanity exclaimed, jumping up from her seat. "What have you done?" Ezra looked at her father with wide-open eyes full of terror. Knox finally pulled away from the phone, his face a mixture of shock and strange satisfaction. "He asked for it," Prentice muttered, rubbing his fist. "He always knows how to hurt me." "That's no excuse." Vanity came over to me. "Orson, are you all right?" I nodded, though I was actually far from okay. The physical pain was nothing compared to the storm of emotions that raged inside me. "Maybe we shouldn't make a big deal out of it," Adele said uncertainly. "After all, no one was seriously hurt, and Orson did provoke Prentice." "Are you serious?" Vanity turned to her. "He hit his 75-year-old father. How can that be justified?" "Don't, Vanity," I rose slowly. "It's all right." "No, it's not." She was truly outraged. "Prentice should apologize." "I won't apologize," my son said stubbornly. "He got what he deserved, always pushing guilt, always manipulating. I'm tired of it." I looked at him and didn't recognize him. When did my little boy, who I taught to ride a bike, turn into this mean, selfish man? "I think I'd better leave," I said quietly. "Where to?" "This is your house," Vanity reminded me. "I mean to go up to my place," I explained. The celebration was over. "But what about the restaurant?" Ezra asked, confused. "Go on without me." I tried to smile, but felt the pain in my bruised jaw. I'd lost my appetite anyway. "No," Vanity said firmly. "We're not going to the restaurant after what happened. It's not right." "Speak for yourself," Adele snorted. "The reservation's already paid for, and it would be stupid to lose it." "I'm staying with Grandpa," Ezra said. "No," I shook my head. "Go with the others, dear. I just need to get some rest." "Are you sure?" she asked hesitantly. "Absolutely." I kissed her forehead. "Have fun for me." I headed for the stairs, feeling the stares of everyone there. No one else tried to stop me. When I was at the top of the stairs, I heard Prentice say loudly, "There he goes again, ruining everything with his drama." And worst of all, no one contradicted him. In my room, I sat down on the edge of my bed and let myself finally feel the depth of what had happened. My own son had hit me, on my birthday, and no one had stood up for me. Even Vanity, despite her outrage, had finally let it all happen. I heard the front door slam, then car engines honking. They had indeed left for the restaurant as if nothing had happened. I walked over to the mirror and examined my face. A bruise was already starting to show on my jaw. It would be worse tomorrow. I opened the medicine cabinet and pulled out a painkiller. After swallowing the pill, I went back to the bed and lay there, staring at the ceiling. Something has to change, I thought. This can't go on. And for the first time in years, I felt something dark and determined brewing inside me. A desire for revenge, a desire to teach a lesson, a desire to show that I can't be treated like this, even if I am 75 years old. I didn't know exactly how I would do it, but I was sure of one thing. Prentice would regret raising his hand against me, and everyone else who'd let it happen in silence would regret their inaction too. The bruise on my jaw turned every shade of purple before it began to yellow around the edges. It had been a week since that ill-fated birthday party, and I still couldn't believe that my own son had raised a hand against me. It seemed even more unbelievable that no one there had even called to see how I was feeling. Not Prentice, not Adele, not even Vanity. Only Ezra sent a quick text the next day. "Grandpa, sorry about Dad. I hope you're not in too much pain." Even from her, I expected more. Wednesday morning began as usual. I brewed myself some coffee, made peanut butter toast, and sat down at the kitchen table with the newspaper. There was something soothing about the rustle of the pages, the smell of printing ink. Hilda always teased me, saying that I was born in the last century not only in date but also in spirit. Hilda, her image was still so vivid in my mind. A tall, statuesque woman with a mop of dark curly hair and eyes the color of a stormy sky. She was an English literature teacher at the local school, and the students adored her. When she recited poetry, the whole class would swoon. She had a gift for conveying emotion through words. We met at the town fair 53 years ago. I had just returned from the army and had gotten a job as an assistant inspector at a construction site. She was selling homemade cookies at the charity tent. I bought a whole box, even though I'd never had a sweet tooth, just to talk to her longer. I turned the page of the newspaper and came across a small notice about the results of the Lucky Star raffle. I usually skipped over this information, but today something made me hold my gaze. The 6 winning numbers listed in the article seemed vaguely familiar. A sudden hunch made me jump up from my chair and hurry into the hallway, where a lottery ticket purchased at the insistence of the cashier at the grocery store would be in my coat pocket. "It's your birthday today, Mr. Bellamy," she said. "Buy a ticket for good luck." I agreed, more to avoid offending this nice woman than out of any real hope of winning. The ticket was found where I'd left it, a little crumpled but perfectly legible. I went back to the kitchen, put it down next to the newspaper, and began to compare the numbers. 22, it matched. 37, matches. 5, it matches. 41 matches. 9, it matches. 16, it's a match. I double-checked 3 times, couldn't believe my eyes. All 6 digits. It's a perfect match. Jackpot. The article said that the winner of the winning ticket would receive £5,800,000. The amount seemed unreal. I sat back in my chair, feeling my heart pounding. $5,800,000, more than I'd earned in a lifetime. My first impulse was to call Prentice. Despite our conflict, he was still my son. I even reached for the phone, but immediately jerked my hand away, remembering the look on his face before the punch. Anger, contempt, like I was nothing to be rid of. "This house is too valuable to just stand here." His words echoed in my head. He needed the money from the sale of the house. Money, not to take care of me. And if he found out about the winnings, well, it's not hard to imagine how quickly he'd remember his filial love. No, I've decided. I won't tell him. At least not now. I'd have to think it over first. I folded the ticket neatly and hid it in my shirt pocket. Then I found information on the internet about how to claim my winnings. I had to call the number and make an appointment at the lottery company's headquarters. I decided to go there today. The office was in a neighboring town, about an hour away by train. I put on my best suit, the same gray one that Hilda liked, and set off for the station. All the way there, I couldn't stop thinking about what I could do with that money now. So many possibilities. I could travel, buy a new car, help my grandchildren with their education. But in the midst of all those bright thoughts, one dark, insistent idea slipped through. I could punish Prentice, show him that I couldn't be treated like a worthless thing. I didn't yet know how, but I felt that now I had the means to teach him a lesson. At the office of the lottery company, I was welcomed with open arms. A young woman in an austere suit ushered me into a separate office, where a middle-aged man with a broad smile was waiting. "Mr. Bellamy," he exclaimed, shaking my hand. "It's a pleasure to meet our lucky man. I'm Oliver Hunter, Director of Customer Service. The procedure for confirming my winnings was quite simple. They checked my ticket, made a copy of my passport, and I filled out a few forms." Mr. Hunter explained that the money would be transferred to my account within 5 business days. "Do you have a financial advisor, Mr. Bellamy?" he inquired. "Such a large sum of money requires proper management." "No, but I can manage it," I said confidently. "In 40 years as an inspector, I've learned to understand documents and figures." "As you wish," he nodded. "But if you change your mind, we have a list of recommended specialists." I thanked him and took the brochure, though I didn't intend to use it. The fewer people who knew about my winnings, the better. "One more question." Mr. Hunter lowered his voice. "Do you want publicity? Many winners are interviewed, photographed with a token check." "No," I said firmly. "I prefer to remain anonymous." "I understand," he smiled understandingly. "Many people choose that option, especially people of your, generation." I didn't take offense at the implication of my age. After all, I was really from a different generation, one that considered bragging about money to be the height of indecency. As I left the office, I felt strangely empty. I had become a millionaire, but I didn't feel the joy I had expected. Maybe because I couldn't share the news with Hilda. She was always there for me at important moments in my life. When I was promoted to chief inspector, when our daughter Pearl gave birth to our firstborn, when I retired, and now she was gone, and there was no one to rejoice with me. I decided to have lunch at a small cafe near the station before heading home. Sitting at a table by the window, I watched the passers-by and reflected on how strangely life works. For so many years, Hilda and I had saved money on everything to give our children a good education. I'd picked up extra shifts. She'd moonlighted as a tutor. We denied ourselves travel, new furniture, expensive clothes. And for what? To hear my son tell me in his old age that I'm a burden to get rid of. And Pearl. My daughter had been living in Australia with her family for 15 years. We talked once a month via video link, and she always sounded like she was talking to a stranger, polite but detached. I couldn't blame her. I'd become distant myself after Hilda's death, withdrawn in my grief. But it still hurt to know that my own children thought I was a stranger. Orson? Orson Bellamy? I looked up and saw Vanity standing next to my table. She was wearing a white chef's jacket, her hair hidden under a net. She looked surprised and a little embarrassed. "Vanity," I smiled involuntarily. Despite what had happened, I'd always had warm feelings for her. What a surprise. "I work at the restaurant across the street," she pointed toward the street. "The Laurel Leaf. I'm on my break right now. Would you like to join me?" I pointed to a vacant chair. She hesitated only a moment before sitting down. "How's your—" She gently pointed at my jaw. "It's better." I touched the bruise involuntarily. "It'll be gone soon." "I'm so ashamed of what happened," she lowered her eyes. "I should have done something, should have stopped him." "It wasn't your fault," I shook my head. "No one expected this from Prentice." "I did," she admitted quietly. "He changed over the years, aggressive, irritable. It's one of the reasons we got divorced." I looked at her in surprise. "I thought you broke up because of Adele." "Adele was the symptom, not the cause," Vanity grinned bitterly. "By the time he met her, our marriage was falling apart. He couldn't accept the fact that his insurance company wasn't generating the income he'd hoped for. He blamed everyone around him, Customers, employees, the economy. Me. You? Why? Because I wanted to work, she shrugged. He thought my work as a chef was just a hobby, a whim. He said I should stay home and take care of the kids, not play restaurant. When I talked about opening my own restaurant, she stopped talking, shaking her head. What happened? I asked softly. He made fun of me. Her voice trembled. He said I was a talentless cook and that my restaurant would go bankrupt in a month, that I had no idea about business, that I'd better spend my time getting cleaned up because I was getting fat and down. I was shocked. Such cruelty didn't fit at all with the image of the Prentice I knew, or thought I knew. I can't imagine my son saying things like that, I admitted honestly. He's changed, Orson, she said, a shadow of sadness in her eyes. Or maybe he'd always been like that, just hiding it well. Either way, it's only gotten worse since the divorce. He's always nagging me about how I'm raising the kids, especially Ezra. He says I'm making her look like a sissy. All because I let her pursue art instead of making her learn economics and business like he wants. I remembered the fondness Ezra had for her father, despite his apparent coldness. Children often love their parents against all odds, and that makes them especially vulnerable. What about your dream? I asked, returning to the subject of the restaurant. Do you still want to open your own place? Her face brightened, and I saw in her the young, enthusiastic woman Prentice had brought into our home 20 years ago. Of course, I've been saving money all these years, but it's still not enough. Renting a space, equipment, licenses, initial inventory. It's a huge expense, and banks are reluctant to lend to women my age, especially without business management experience. But you have experience as a chef, I pointed out. It's different, she sighed. Being a good chef doesn't mean being a good businessman. Prentice was right about that. Don't say that, I covered her hand with mine. You're talented and hard-working. That's the main thing. She smiled gratefully. Thank you, Orson. It's a pity that not all men in the Bellamy family are so understanding. We talked a little more about the children, about her work, about life in Suffolk. She told me that she now rents a small apartment near the restaurant where she works. Prentice pays her a modest alimony, which is barely enough for basic needs. I should get back, she finally said, glancing at her watch. Lunch break was almost over. Sure, I nodded. It was nice talking to you. You too, she stood up. And Orson, I'm really sorry about what happened at your birthday party. I should have called to see how you were. It's okay, I smiled. I understand. She left, and I remained sitting there, immersed in my thoughts. Something was beginning to form in my head, some kind of plan. The idea was still vague, unformed, but I felt I had found a way to use my winnings to bring justice. And vanity, unknowingly, had shown me the way. After paying, I went to the train station, but instead of taking the train home, I headed for the downtown business district. There was a commercial real estate agency, the sign of which I noticed on the way to the cafe. The office was small but well-maintained. A young woman with bright red hair and a professional smile greeted me at the desk. "What can I do for you?" she asked. "I'm looking for a restaurant," I replied. "In Suffolk or nearby." Her eyebrows raised slightly, probably because of my age. It wasn't often that 75-year-old men came to open restaurants. But she quickly managed her surprise and nodded. "Sure, we have a few options. What size space are you interested in? What's your budget?" "I'm open to suggestions," I replied evasively. "Show me everything you have." She spent the next hour showing me files with pictures of different rooms, explaining their advantages and disadvantages. I listened attentively, asking questions from time to time. When we got to the last option, I was ready to walk away with nothing. Nothing caught my eye enough to risk investing. One last thing, she opened a folder. This just popped up in our database. It's on Maple Street in Suffolk. Used to be an antique store, but the owner retired. 200 square feet, high ceilings, big windows. There's room for a summer terrace. I looked at the pictures and froze. It was a building I knew very well. It was right across the street from Prentice's insurance company office. "How much?" I asked, trying not to show my excitement. She said the amount, and I could barely contain a smile. It was expensive, but it was affordable with my winnings. "I want to see it," I said firmly, "as soon as possible." "We can arrange a viewing tomorrow morning," she offered, clearly pleased by my enthusiasm. "Great," I nodded, pulling out the business card I'd always carried with me since my days as an inspector. "Here are my contacts." On the way home, I felt a strange excitement growing inside me. The plan was beginning to take shape. I would finance Vanity's restaurant, the one she had dreamed of for years, the one Prentice had so cruelly ridiculed. And I'll put it right across the street from my son's office so he can see his ex-wife's business thriving every day. So he can remember every day how wrong he was about her, and me too. Of course, there was no guarantee that the restaurant would be a success, but I believed in Vanity's talent. I remembered how delicious her dishes had been at family dinners, how creative she'd been in preparing even the simplest of dishes. And then I could hire experienced managers, consultants, marketers, all the people who would help turn her culinary talent into a successful business. By the time the train arrived in Suffolk, it was already dark. I walked from the station to my house, feeling a strange excitement I hadn't felt in years. For the first time since Hilda's death, I had a purpose, something worth waking up in the morning for. At home, I went straight up to my study and pulled out an old notebook. There was Vanity's cell phone number, the one she'd left in case something happened to the kids. I wasn't sure if the number was still valid, but it was worth a try. I dialed the number and held my breath. After the third ring, I heard her voice. "Hello? Vanity, it's Orson," I said. "I'm sorry for the late call. I have a proposition for you, a business proposition, about your restaurant." "A business proposition?" I could hear the confusion in Vanity's voice. "I don't understand." "I'd like to discuss it in person," I said, realizing that over the phone it would sound too strange, perhaps even suspicious. "Could you meet me tomorrow?" There was a pause, and I imagined her frowning, trying to figure out what was going on. "I have a shift until 4 tomorrow," she finally answered. "I can do it after work." "Great," I was relieved. "Let's meet at the Morning Dew Cafe at 5:30?" "Okay," she agreed, still sounding puzzled. "See you tomorrow, Orson." I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. The first step had been taken. Now I had to think carefully about how to present my proposal so she wouldn't say no right away. I spent most of the night mapping out the conversation, thinking through possible objections and responses. By morning I had a headache, but I felt ready. In the morning I called a real estate agent and arranged to view a room on Maple Street for 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I visited my bank, where I opened a new account and transferred some of the funds from my main account just in case Prentice somehow found out about my winnings and tried to access them. I wasn't sure he was capable of such a thing, but it wouldn't hurt to be cautious. At 2 o'clock I met the agent outside the building on Maple Street. It was a beautiful old red brick structure with large display windows and an elegant entrance. It was spacious and bright inside, though it was in need of renovation. The old wooden floors creaked, the wallpaper was peeling, and the plumbing had seen better days. "The place needs investment," the agent said as she watched me look around. "But the rent is below market because of that." I nodded, mentally calculating how much it would take to renovate and remodel. Given my winnings, it was a manageable sum. "What about buying it?" I asked. "Is the building for sale?" The agent raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Yes, the owner is ready to sell, but the price—" "Name it," I interrupted. She named the amount, which was about a third of my winnings. Considerable, but still affordable. "I'll think about it," I said, not wanting to show my enthusiasm. "I'll let you know the decision in the next few days." As I left the building, I deliberately crossed the street and stopped in front of the Prentice Insurance Company office. Through the glass doors, I could see the few employees sitting at their computers and a lone visitor bored on a couch in the waiting area. Business was clearly not booming. I imagined what Vanity's restaurant would look like, with a bright sign, cozy tables by the windows, a terrace filled with customers in warm weather. I imagined how Prentice would see it every day from his window, how he would watch the success of his ex-wife, whom he despised so much. It was the perfect revenge, not cruel, not illegal, but painful to his ego. At 5:30, I was already sitting in the Morning Dew Cafe, nervously twirling a cup of cooling coffee in my hands. Vanity was 10 minutes late, and when she finally appeared, flushed, her hair disheveled by the wind, I was strangely relieved. "I'm sorry I'm late," she breathed, taking off her coat and sitting down across from me. "The bus was delayed." "That's okay," I smiled. "Would you like something to drink?" "Tea, please." She looked at me curiously. "So, Orson, what's the business proposition? You intrigued me." I took a deep breath. The moment has come. "I want to finance the opening of your restaurant," I said bluntly. Her eyes widened in surprise. "What? But how? Why? I don't understand." "I have some funds," I answered evasively, not wanting to reveal the source of the money yet. "And I want to invest it in your restaurant. Fully finance everything. Rent or purchase of the premises, repairs, equipment, startup costs. You'll be the chef and the manager. We split the profits." Vanity looked stunned. "But it's a lot of money. Orson, I can't accept a gift like that." "It's not a gift," I shook my head. "It's an investment. I believe in your talent and that the restaurant will be successful." "But why?" She frowned, trying to understand my motives. "We're not that close. Besides, you're 75 years old. I'm sorry to be blunt, but at your age, people don't usually start new businesses." I understood her suspicions. Indeed, my proposal seemed strange, even suspicious. I could have lied, come up with some noble reason, but I decided to be honest at least partially. "You're right, it is unusual," I admitted, "and I have personal motives. After what happened at my birthday party, I've been thinking a lot about life, about family, about what I'm going to leave behind. I don't want my money to go to Prentice, not after the way he treated me. Besides, I've always respected you, Vanity. You were a good wife to Prentice, a good mother to his children. You deserve a chance to fulfill your dream." That was the truth, though not the whole truth. I didn't mention that I saw it as a way to get back at my son, to show him that he was wrong to humiliate me and his ex-wife. Vanity looked at me carefully, as if trying to read my mind. "That's very generous, Orson, but I need to be sure you understand the risks. Restaurants are a tough business. A lot of them close in the first year." "I understand." I nodded, and I'm willing to take the risk. After all, what have I got to lose? If it works out, we both win. If it doesn't, well, at least I've tried to do something worthwhile in my old age. She smiled, but she still looked uncertain. "I need to think about it. It's too big a decision to make right away." "Of course," I agreed, "but don't think about it too long. I've found the perfect room, but it might be gone if we don't decide quickly." "Where is it?" she inquired. "On Maple Street," I answered. "An old antique store building, spacious, bright, with the possibility of a summer terrace." Her eyes lit up. "I know that building. It's beautiful, but it needs a major renovation, right?" "Yes, and I'm ready to invest in it," I confirmed. "In fact, I'm thinking of buying the building instead of renting it. It's more secure in the long run." "Buy?" She shook her head. "Orson, it's millions." "I can afford it," I assured her. "Trust me." Vanity stared thoughtfully at her teacup. "What about Prentice? He'll be furious when he finds out you're financing my restaurant." "That shouldn't worry you," I said, trying to speak calmly. Prentice and I will handle it. He might try to interfere, she warned. You don't know how vindictive he can be. When we got divorced, she stammered as if she was having trouble remembering. What happened in the divorce? I asked softly. Vanity took a deep breath. It was awful. He made sure I got as little as possible, hired the most expensive lawyer in town, bribed witnesses who said I was a bad mother. He even tried to sue me for both of my kids, even though he never really had any interest in raising them, especially Ezra. He always wanted a son, not a daughter. I was shocked. The Prentice I knew, or thought I knew, was ambitious, sometimes abrupt but not violent. When had he had time to change so much? He eventually agreed to joint custody, but only because he realized that full custody would mean more responsibility for him. Vanity continued. I was less fortunate with my assets. Our house, our car, our savings all went to him. I had to start from scratch, with 2 kids in tow. I didn't know, I admitted honestly. Prentice hadn't told me anything about the details of your divorce. Of course he didn't, she grinned bitterly. He prides himself on his reputation in the city. A respected businessman, a caring father. If people knew what he was really like during the divorce. I remembered how Prentice used to introduce Adele to me, proudly like she was a trophy. How he bragged about her success in the real estate business. How carelessly he'd referred to Vanity in conversations with me. She was always too emotional, not serious. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said sincerely. And I understand your fears about Prentice. But I'm not afraid of him, Vanity. And you needn't be either. She smiled faintly. That's easy to say. You haven't lived with him for 20 years. No, but I raised him, I objected. And maybe it's my fault that he turned out the way he did. Maybe I was too strict. Or not strict enough. I don't know. But I want to fix what I can, and helping you is one of those things. Vanity looked at me for a long time as if trying to decide whether to trust me. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'm willing to discuss the details, but I need to see the room with my own eyes before I make a final decision. Of course, I was relieved. I'll arrange a viewing for tomorrow if you're free. It's my day off, she nodded. Any time would be fine. We agreed to meet outside the building at 10 in the morning, and I hurried to call the agent to arrange a showing. Fortunately, she was able to accommodate us. The next morning, Vanity and I met outside the building on Maple Street. She arrived before me and was already looking at the facade when I approached. It looks even better than I remembered, she said, not taking her eyes off the building. Such character, such history. Wait until you see the inside, I smiled. It's a lot of work, but the potential is huge. The agent was already waiting for us and immediately let us inside. I watched Vanity's reaction as she looked around the room. Her eyes were shining and she was gesticulating vigorously, showing me where the bar could be, where the kitchen would be, how to arrange the tables. Her enthusiasm was infectious. An open kitchen would be perfect here, she said, pointing to the far side of the room. Guests love to watch the cooking process. And here you can make a fireplace, a real, working one. It would be so cozy on winter evenings. I listened to her with a strange sense of pride, as if this was my project, my idea from the beginning. Something about Vanity's enthusiasm reminded me of Hilda. The same passion, the same ability to see potential where others saw only problems. When we got to the second floor, Vanity stopped at a window facing the street. It's a great view from here. We could make a VIP area for special occasions. I walked over and stood next to her. Directly across the street, I could see Prentice's office. I noticed her frown as she followed my gaze. Isn't that Prentice's office? Yes, I confirmed, trying to sound casual. Funny coincidence, isn't it? She looked at me intently. Coincidence? Orson, you chose this place on purpose, didn't you? I didn't deny it. Yes, it's part of the plan. What plan? Her voice became tense. I decided to be completely honest. A plan to show Prentice that he was wrong about both of us. About you when he said you couldn't run a successful restaurant business, and about me when he thought I was too old and weak to stand up for myself. Vanity was silent, digesting my words. I was afraid that she would abandon the project when she realized my true motives. "It's revenge," she finally said. "Not a question, but a statement." "You could say that," I admitted. "But it's constructive revenge. No one will be physically harmed. No illegal actions. Just a successful business right under the nose of the man who thought we were both failures." "And if the restaurant isn't successful?" she asked. "If it goes bankrupt like Prentice predicted?" "Then we'll lose money, but we'll keep our dignity," I replied. "Because we tried. Because we weren't afraid to take the risk." Vanity looked at Prentice's office for a long moment, then turned her gaze back to me. "You know what the most hurtful thing is? When we were first married, I supported him in everything. When he decided to start his own insurance company, I gave him all my savings, worked 2 jobs to pay the bills while he got his business off the ground. And when I talked about my dream," she shook her head. "He said I was selfish, that I was only thinking about myself and not my family." I nodded understandingly. "That's not fair, and I want to help you correct that injustice." "This restaurant isn't just a business for me," she said quietly. "It's proof that I'm worth something, that my dreams matter." "Exactly," I agreed. "And when he sees your restaurant thriving, he'll be furious," she smiled, and there was something predatory about it. "You know, Orson, I think I like your plan. It really is the perfect place." I felt a warm feeling inside. She understood. She was on my side. "So we're partners?" I asked, extending my hand. "Partners," she shook my hand, her handshake firm and confident. We discussed the details of the purchase with the agent, and I put down a deposit to secure the right to purchase the building. The deal was to be finalized within 2 weeks. Vanity and I spent the next few days working out the plan for the restaurant. She showed me her recipes, menu ideas, and interior concept. I was impressed with her professionalism and attention to detail. "I've been thinking about this for years," she admitted as we sat in my kitchen, surrounded by sketches and lists, writing down ideas, collecting recipes, researching trends. Every time Prentice rejected my dream, I added another page to my idea folder. It was my way of not giving up. "You're a strong woman, Vanity," I said sincerely. "Stronger than you think you are." She smiled embarrassedly. "I don't always feel strong, especially when Prentice starts to push. He knows how to find weaknesses." "That's because you let him," I said. "But now you'll have your own business, your own source of income. You won't be dependent on his alimony anymore." "That's true," her eyes lit up. "I'll finally be truly independent." We decided to name the restaurant Hilda's, after my late wife. When I suggested the name, Vanity immediately agreed. "It's perfect, short, memorable, with a story. And I've always admired Hilda. She was so elegant, so confident." "She would have been proud of you," I said, feeling a lump in my throat, "and would have been pleased to have her name associated with your project." We hired an architect and a designer to design a remodeling project for the building. Vanity insisted on an open kitchen, wood floors, and a large fireplace in the center of the hall. I agreed to everything. After all, it was her restaurant, her vision. "What about the menu?" I asked as we discussed the concept. "What kind of cuisine are you planning?" "Modern British with Mediterranean elements," she answered without hesitation. "Classic dishes but with unexpected twists. Seasonal ingredients, local produce. Quality is paramount." I nodded, impressed by her clarity of vision. "Sounds wonderful. And expensive." "Not necessarily," she countered. "Good food doesn't always have to be expensive. It's important to choose the right ingredients, to cook them right. I want my restaurant to be affordable for the middle class, but offer the quality of haute cuisine." The more we discussed the details, the more I became convinced that my plan was perfect. Vanity really deserved this chance, and Prentice deserved to see her succeed and realize how wrong he'd been. 2 weeks later, we finalized the purchase of the building. I became the official owner, though Vanity and I agreed that she could eventually buy out my share if the restaurant was successful. The day we signed all the paperwork, we stood in front of the building, now ours, and I felt a strange excitement. It was like starting a new life at 75. "I can't believe this is happening," Vanity said, looking at the building. "Thank you, Orson. It wouldn't have been possible without you." "Don't thank me yet," I smiled. "Wait until we open and start making a profit. Even if we go bankrupt, I'll still be grateful," she said seriously, "for believing in me, for giving me a chance." I nodded, not trusting my voice. In that moment, I almost forgot about revenge, about Prentice, about punching her in the face. Almost. But then I saw him, my son, coming out of his office across the street. He stopped on the steps, noticing us, and even from this distance I could see his face change. First bewilderment, then recognition, and finally anger. Prentice crossed the street quickly and came toward us. "What are you doing here?" he asked sharply, shifting his gaze from me to Vanity and back again. "We're inspecting our new acquisition," I said calmly. "Hello, Prentice." "Your acquisition?" He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means that your father and I bought this building," Vanity replied, and I was pleased to note that her voice sounded confident. "It's going to be a restaurant. My restaurant." Prentice stared at her, then at me, and I could see the realization slowly dawning on his face. "You're funding her? After everything that happened between us?" "Yes," I answered simply, "and I'm sure it will be a great investment." "You're crazy," he hissed. "She doesn't know anything about business. It's a waste of money." "We'll see," I shrugged. "Anyway, it's my money, and I have the right to spend it however I want." Prentice shifted his gaze to Vanity. "And you? Did you pick the spot across from my office on purpose? Is this some pathetic attempt at revenge?" "I chose the place," I intervened, "and it's perfect for a restaurant. High traffic, good visibility from the street, plenty of parking nearby. The fact that it's across the street from your office is just a nice bonus." Prentice's face contorted with anger. "You're both going to regret this," he said quietly, but with such fury that I felt Vanity tense beside me. "I'll do anything to keep this restaurant from opening. Everything, do you hear me?" "Are you threatening me?" I asked, feeling the anger boiling up inside me. "You think I'm going to be scared? After you hit me in my own house on my birthday? You asked for it," he snapped, "and now you're asking for it." "Prentice, stop it," Vanity intervened. "You're acting like a child, and you're acting like a—" He didn't finish the sentence, but his eyes were full of contempt. "You know what? Do whatever you want. Go broke. I don't care. But don't come crying to me when it all falls apart." With those words, he turned and walked briskly back to his office. After the confrontation with Prentice, work on the restaurant got underway. We hired a construction crew that worked day and night to meet the target opening date of 3 months from now. Vanity was completely immersed in the project, overseeing every detail, from choosing the paint colors for the walls to the menu design and staffing. I wasn't left out of the loop either. Despite my age, I traveled to the construction site almost every day, monitoring progress and communicating with the contractors. My career as a site inspector finally came in handy. I could tell at a glance if the work was being done well, and the contractors quickly realized that I wasn't fooled. One morning, as I was checking the installation of the ventilation system in the kitchen, the foreman came up to me. "Mr. Bellamy, we have a problem with the delivery of floor tiles. The supplier says they've suddenly run out of stock and the new shipment won't be here for another month." "That's odd," I frowned. "They'd confirmed availability 2 weeks ago." "Yes, sir," the foreman nodded. "And this is the 3rd time this week. First the problems with the wood for the bar, then the delay with the plumbing, now the tile." I was beginning to suspect that this wasn't just a coincidence. Prentice's words came to mind. I will do whatever it takes to keep this restaurant from opening. Try to find another supplier, I ordered, even if it means paying more. We've tried, sir, the foreman sighed. All the local companies say the same thing. Out of stock. Wait a month. What about companies from neighboring cities? We can try, but shipping will increase the cost. Money is not a problem, I said firmly. The main thing is to stay on schedule. In the evening, I told Venita about the situation as we sat in my house discussing the menu. Do you think it's Prentice? She asked, setting aside the recipe folder. Sure, I nodded. He knows everyone in this town, especially in the business community. It wouldn't be hard for him to put pressure on the suppliers. Vanity turned pale. I was afraid he would. He's not the type to give up easily. Neither are we, I covered her hand with mine. Don't worry, we'll find a solution. If we have to, we'll order everything from London. But that will increase the cost considerably, she said with concern. I told you money isn't a problem, I smiled. I have enough money to cope with any obstacles Prentice will put in my way. That same evening, I received a call from Pearl in Australia. This was unusual. Usually we communicated on a pre-arranged schedule. Dad, what's going on? She asked without preamble. Prentice called me, saying you're spending your entire inheritance on some crazy project with his ex-wife. I sighed. Of course, Prentice didn't miss the opportunity to turn my sister against me as well. I'm investing in the restaurant business, Pearl, I replied calmly. It's my decision and my money. But why with Vanity? I could hear the bewilderment in her voice. You've never been particularly close. She's a talented chef with a great business idea, I explained. And I believe in this project. Prentice says you're doing this to spite him, Pearl continued, that you were offended because of some incident at your birthday party. Incident? I laughed with bitterness. He hit me, Pearl. Your brother punched me in the face on my 75th birthday, and no one here even stood up for me. There was silence on the line. What? Pearl finally spoke up. Prentice hit you? He didn't say anything about it. Of course he didn't. I could feel my anger rising. He only told you what made him look good. Typical Prentice. Dad, I don't know what to say, her voice shook. It's awful. But still, opening a business with his ex-wife right across the street from his office, it seems like a deliberate provocation. And it is a provocation, I admitted honestly. I want him to realize that I can't be treated like this, that I'm not a helpless old man who can be tossed into a nursing home when he becomes inconvenient. A nursing home? What are you talking about? I told her about Prentice's offer to sell the house and move into a boarding house. Pearl listened in silence, and I couldn't tell which side she was on. You see, I finished, it's not just about the blow, it's about attitude. The way he looks at me, like I'm not a person anymore, but a burden to get rid of. I'm sorry, Daddy, Pearl said quietly. I didn't know it was so bad. Prentice only said you were getting forgetful and acting strange sometimes. Forgetful? I was outraged. I remember by heart all the building codes I used to work under 30 years ago. My memory is better than that of many young people. I believe you, Pearl said soothingly. Just be careful, okay? Prentice can be very vindictive when he feels threatened. I know, I sighed. I've already encountered it. 2 weeks before the opening, I encountered another manifestation of Prentice's hostility. When I returned home after a day at the restaurant, I found an envelope on my doorstep. Inside was an official letter from the attorney representing my son. The letter stated that Prentice was concerned about my mental state and the financial decisions I had been making lately. He had initiated a process to test my capacity and asked the court to appoint him as my financial guardian. I reread the letter over and over again, unable to believe my eyes. This was a new level of sleaze. Prentice wasn't just trying to prevent me from opening a restaurant. He wanted to take away my right to manage my own money. I immediately called my longtime friend Roland, who had been an attorney before retiring. "He won't be able to accomplish that," Roland said confidently after listening to me. "You're in perfect health, clear mind, and clear memory. Any doctor can attest to that." The next day, I decided to go to Prentice myself. I wasn't going to hide or talk through lawyers. I wanted to look him in the eye. His office was nearly empty when I walked in. The young receptionist behind the counter raised her eyebrows in surprise. "What can I do for you?" "I'm here to see Prentice Bellamy," I said. "I'm his father." She was visibly embarrassed. "Mr. Bellamy is busy right now. He's in a meeting." "I'll wait," I said firmly and sat down in the visitor's chair. 15 minutes later, the door to Prentice's office opened, and a man in an expensive suit came out. As soon as he left, I got up, and without waiting for an invitation, entered the office. Prentice was sitting at his desk, looking over some papers. He looked up and froze when he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he asked coldly. I tossed the envelope with the letter from the lawyer on his desk. "I came to talk about this. Do you really think I'm incompetent, Prentice?" He leaned back in his chair. "What else do you call what you're doing? Putting huge sums of money into an obviously failing business just to spite me. Is that the behavior of a reasonable person?" "It's the behavior of a man who is tired of being disrespected," I replied calmly, "and who believes in the talent of his business partner." "Business partner," Prentice snorted contemptuously. "Vanity can barely manage her own budget, let alone a restaurant. She'll bankrupt you in a matter of months." "It's my money and my risk," I shrugged. "If you're so sure the restaurant will fail, why are you so actively trying to stop it from opening?" Prentice narrowed his eyes. "Because it's family money, the money that was supposed to go to me and Pearl when you died, and you're spending it on this." "That's it," I grinned bitterly. "It's not my mental health you're worried about, it's your inheritance." A few days later, I got a call from Roland. He informed me that the court had denied Prentice's petition to test my capacity for lack of any medical grounds. It was a small victory, but there was a major test ahead: opening the restaurant. The day before the opening, Vanity and I made final preparations. The restaurant looked great: light walls, wooden beams on the ceiling, an open kitchen with a wood stove, cozy tables, each with a small vase of fresh flowers. There was a fireplace in the center of the room, and the walls were decorated with black and white photographs of Suffolk from various years, including a few of Hilda's. She liked to take pictures of the cityscape. "It's all ready," Vanity exhaled, looking around the room. "I can't believe we're opening tomorrow." "Are you excited?" I asked, watching her fidget with the edge of her apron. "Crazy," she admitted. "What if no one shows up? What if Prentice is right and I can't handle it?" "He's not right," I said confidently. "You'll make it, and people will come." Knox did a great job with social media advertising, and the local paper ran a nice article about the new restaurant. Indeed, thanks to Knox's efforts, Hilda's restaurant already had an impressive social media audience. He created stylish accounts, posted photos of the renovation process, interviews with Vanity, and shots of some of the dishes on the upcoming menu. People were actively commenting and expressing their desire to visit the restaurant as soon as it opened. On opening day, I arrived early in the morning and found Vanity already in the kitchen. She was preparing preparations for the evening's dishes with her team of chefs. "You've been here since dawn," I wondered. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted, still chopping vegetables. "Too excited." I understood her feelings. For her, this wasn't just business. It was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream, proof of her value as a professional and as a person. At 5 o'clock in the evening, an hour before the official opening, a small line had already gathered outside the restaurant. I looked out the window and was surprised to see Ezra and Knox among those waiting. "Your kids are here," I said to Vanity, who was at that moment giving final instructions to the waiters. She went to the window and brightened when she saw them. "They didn't say they were coming. I think they wanted to surprise me." "Does Prentice know?" I asked cautiously. I doubt it, she shook her head. He wouldn't allow it. At 6 o'clock, we opened the doors. Ezra and Knox were the first to enter, and Vanity hugged them both tightly. "We're so proud of you, Mom," Ezra said, looking around the restaurant. "It's so beautiful here. And fancy," Knox added, taking pictures for social media. "All my friends are jealous that my mom owns such a cool place." Vanity looked happy, but I noticed her occasional glances at the door as if expecting to see someone else there. "He's not coming," Knox said quietly, following her gaze. "Dad's away for the weekend with Adele." "I didn't expect him to come," Vanity answered quickly, but I could see the relief on her face. She was afraid Prentice might make a scene on opening day. By 7 o'clock, the restaurant was full. Every table was occupied, and a line of eager diners was already gathering at the entrance. Vanity and her team worked like a well-oiled machine. The food came out of the kitchen on time. The waiters were attentive and professional. I sat at a small table in the corner of the room, watching with a sense of pride and satisfaction. Ezra came up to me with a glass of lemonade. "Can I join you, Grandpa?" "Sure," I smiled, pointing to a vacant chair. "What do you think of the restaurant?" "Amazing," she said sincerely. "And the food is divine. My mom always cooked good food, but she's outdone herself here." "Your mom is very talented," I agreed. "Too bad your father didn't appreciate it." Ezra paused, twirling her glass in her hands. "You know, I never understood why he was so against her dream. It's great to have your own business, to create something new." "Some men can't accept their wives' success," I said, "especially if they're struggling themselves. Do you think they could reconcile?" Ezra suddenly asked. "Mom and Dad?" I looked at her in surprise. "After all this time? I don't think so, and should we? Your mom's happy now, isn't she?" "Yes," Ezra nodded. "I haven't seen her this excited in a long time. It's just, it would be easier if they could at least communicate normally." "Maybe in time," I said carefully, though I didn't believe it myself. Prentice wasn't the type to forgive easily. As the evening wore on, I noticed that among the visitors were a number of influential people in town, other business owners, city officials, local celebrities. All of them seemed impressed with both the restaurant and the food. I could hear people at neighboring tables exchanging enthusiastic comments as waiters took reservations for future dates. Toward the end of the evening, as the restaurant began to empty, Vanity approached me. She looked tired but happy. "We did it," she said, taking a seat next to me. "The opening went perfectly." "You did it," I corrected. "It's your talent, your vision. I only provided the means." "Don't belittle your role," she shook her head. "Without you, none of this would have happened. And it's not just about the money. You believed in me when no one else did, not even myself. I was touched by her words." Despite my original motives, to get back at Prentice to prove him wrong, I now felt genuinely happy for Vanity and proud to have helped her realize her dream. "Do you think we can keep up this pace?" she asked with a note of concern. "Wasn't it just curiosity about the new place?" "Judging by how many reservations are already made for next week," I smiled, "it wasn't just curiosity. People really liked it, and they'll be back." She nodded, and in her eyes I saw something I hadn't seen in years: hope, pride, and quiet confidence. Hilda's restaurant began its journey, and all the omens pointed to success. 6 months flew by. Winter changed to spring, and then came summer. Hilda's restaurant not only survived this difficult period for the new business, but flourished into one of the most popular and prestigious venues in Suffolk. Critics praised Vanity's innovative menu, cozy atmosphere, and impeccable service. Tables were booked weeks in advance, and the local newspaper voted Hilda's the best new restaurant of the year. I watched this success with mixed feelings. On the one hand, I was genuinely happy for Vanity. She deserved to be recognized for her talent. On the other hand, I was left with a strange feeling of emptiness. Revenge, which had seemed so sweet in my fantasies, had left a bitter taste. That sunny July morning, I sat on the restaurant's terrace, sipping my morning coffee and perusing the latest newspaper. Vanity came out of the kitchen and joined me, wiping her hands on her apron. "Good morning, Orson," she smiled. "You're early today." "I couldn't sleep," I shrugged. "I thought I'd take a walk and stop by and see you. Is everything okay?" She looked at me intently. We'd grown closer over the months, and she'd learned to read my moods. "Yeah, just thinking," I answered evasively. "Congratulations on the great article, by the way." "Did you see it?" I handed her the paper, where on the front page of the lifestyle section was the headline, "Hilda's is Suffolk's new gastronomic gem." "Oh my God!" Vanity glowered as she ran her eyes over the article. "They said my tart with caramelized onions and goat's cheese was a little masterpiece worth trying at least once in your life. Can you believe that?" "Easily," I said sincerely. "Your dishes are truly amazing. You deserve every word of praise." She put the paper aside and looked at me carefully. "Something's bothering you after all. I can tell." I sighed. It was hard to hide things from Vanity. "I met Barton Higgins yesterday," I said. "You know, the owner of a construction company. He was one of Prentice's biggest clients." "I?" She tensed up. "He said he'd canceled his contract with Prentice's insurance company, moved on to a competitor." Vanity nodded slowly. "This isn't the first time this has happened, is it?" "Third one this month, as far as I know," I confirmed. "Prentice is losing customers, the biggest and most important ones. And you're feeling guilty." It wasn't a question. "Not really guilty." I looked thoughtfully at my cup of coffee. "More like dissatisfied. I wanted to teach him a lesson, but not destroy his business." "You're not to blame for his problems, Orson," Vanity said softly. "Prentice himself repels customers with his behavior. Barton is a regular at our restaurant, and he once mentioned that Prentice has become intolerable, rude, irritable, unprofessional. People don't want to do business with him." I knew she was right. And yet I couldn't help but think that it was my actions that had set off the chain of events that had led to the current situation. "By the way," Vanity continued, "Ezra asked if she could work here over the summer. She's showing real interest in the restaurant business." "Really?" I wondered. "What does Prentice think about that?" Vanity wrinkled her nose. "He's against it, of course. He says she's wasting her time and should be studying for economics college." "What does Ezra want to do?" "She's thinking about culinary school," Vanity smiled. "She says she wants to be like me." I felt a rush of warmth. Ezra had always been special sensitive, creative, strong-willed. In some ways, she reminded me of Hilda. "I think you should give her a chance," I said. "Let her try it out. If she likes it, fine. If she doesn't, at least she'll know for sure." "That's what I was planning." Vanity nodded. "I just wanted to get your opinion as co-owner." "My opinion is to let her try," I repeated. "And don't worry about Prentice. He can't control the kids' lives forever." After breakfast, I decided to take a walk around town. The day was warm and sunny, and there were a lot of people on the streets. As I passed Prentice's office, I noticed that the signboard looked faded, and there was no usual activity in the windows. I almost walked past, but suddenly I noticed Adele coming out of the building. She looked tense and tired, not at all like the confident woman I remembered. "Adele," I called out to her before I could think about whether I should. She turned around and froze when she saw me. A strange expression flashed across her face, a mixture of surprise, embarrassment, and shame. "Embarrassment?" "Orson," she smiled, strained. "It's been a long time." "Yes, indeed." I stepped closer. "How's it going?" "Fine." She was clearly uncomfortable. "What about you? I hear your restaurant's doing well." "Not mine, Vanity's," I corrected her. "I'm just an investor." Adele nodded, fidgeting nervously with the strap of her purse. "Isn't thrilled about this." "I can imagine," I said dryly. She was silent for a moment, as if struggling with herself. Then she said, "I'm sorry about what happened at your birthday party. What Prentice did, it was wrong." I was surprised at this sudden apology. "Thank you, Adele. Better late than never." "I should have said it sooner," she lowered her eyes. "But Prentice, he's become so complicated. Anything that's not his way triggers angry outbursts. I was just afraid," I finished for her. "I get it. He and we're having problems," she confessed suddenly. "He's angry all the time, blaming everyone else for his failures, especially you and Vanity. It's unbearable. I didn't know what to say." Part of me felt pleased that Prentice was reaping the rewards of his behavior, but the other part, the part that was still the father, felt hurt. "I'm sorry to hear that," I finally said. "I hope you can resolve your problems." "Me too." She didn't sound convinced. "I should go now. It was unexpectedly nice to see you, Orson." She walked away quickly, leaving me pensive. I hadn't expected Prentice's problems to go so far as to affect his marriage. That was not part of my plans. That evening, just as I was about to go to bed, the doorbell rang. Prentice was there, and it was obvious from the first glance that he was drunk. "Are you happy?" he asked without preamble, swaying in his seat. "Satisfied that you've ruined my life?" "Prentice, you're drunk." I tried to close the door. "Go home and sleep it off." "No." He put his hand out, stopping me from closing the door. "You will listen to me. You and your revenge. You took everything from me. My clients, my children, even my wife." "I didn't take anyone from you," I said calmly. "Your clients left on their own because you're no longer a professional. Your kids just want to do what they like. And your wife, well, I had nothing to do with that. Don't pretend." He raised his voice. "This is about your restaurant, because you're funding Vanity. You knew it would destroy me." "I wanted to teach you a lesson," I admitted, "to show you that you can't treat me like garbage. But I didn't mean to destroy you, Prentice. You're doing it yourself with your anger and stubbornness." "Hypocrite," he hissed. "You've always been a hypocrite. You pretended to be the perfect father, but all you really cared about was your job. And now you pretend to be a caring grandfather, but really you're just using my kids to screw with me." His words hurt more than I expected. Maybe there was some truth to them. I did work hard when he was a kid. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention to him. But using my grandchildren against him? No, that wasn't fair. "You're wrong, Prentice," I said firmly. "I've never used your children. I'm just supporting them in what they like to do. And if Ezra wants to work in a restaurant and Knox wants to do social media, that's their choice, not mine. They're my kids." He pounded his fist on the door jamb. "They're mine. And I know best what's good for them." "They're almost adults," I pointed out. "They're entitled to make their own decisions." Prentice shook his head. "You've ruined everything. Everything. Adele wants a divorce. She says I've become unbearable, that I'm obsessed with revenge. It's all because of you." "No, Prentice." I looked him straight in the eye. "It's because of you. Because you can't admit your mistakes and take responsibility. You hit me, and you didn't even apologize. You tried to put me in a nursing home to sell my house. You tried to take away my right to manage my own money. And now you're blaming me for your problems?" He looked at me with hatred, but behind that hatred I saw pain and fear. The fear of a man who loses control of his life and doesn't know how to get it back. "You're going to regret this," he finally hissed. "I swear you will." With those words he turned and staggered slightly toward his car. "You're not driving like that," I shouted after him. "I'll call a cab." "Don't tell me what to do." He snapped at me, but he stopped in front of the car without opening the door. I hailed a cab and we waited in silence for it to arrive me on the doorstep, Prentice at his car. When the cab arrived, he got in without a word and drove away. I couldn't sleep for a long time that night thinking about our conversation. This was not the outcome I had expected when I started my revenge plan. I wanted Prentice to admit he was wrong, to apologize, to start treating me with respect. Instead, he sank deeper and deeper into anger and denial, destroying not only our relationship, but his own life. The next morning, I made a decision. It was time to move on. I called Vanity and asked her to come to my house for a serious talk. She arrived an hour later, concerned at my tone. "What's wrong, Orson? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I reassured her. "It's just that I've made an important decision and I wanted to discuss it with you personally." We sat down in the living room and I got right to the point. "I've decided to move, Vanity, to Devon, near the sea. I've always wanted to live by the water." "Move?" She looked shocked. "But why? When?" "Within a month," I answered. "I've already found a suitable house and made an offer on it." "But what about the restaurant?" She looked confused. "Our partnership?" "That's the second thing I wanted to discuss." I smiled, seeing her concern. "I'm not going to sell my stake in the restaurant to outsiders. Instead, I want to transfer some of the shares to Ezra." "Ezra?" Vanity raised her eyebrows in surprise. "But she's only 13. They'll be in a trust until she comes of age," I explained. "In the meantime, you'll be the sole trustee. But when she reaches 18, she can decide for herself if she wants to be a part of the business." Vanity thought for a moment. That's very generous of you, but why now? Does it have something to do with Prentice?" I sighed. "Partly. He came by last night, drunk, angry, blamed me for all his problems." "Oh my God," she looked at me worriedly. "He didn't threaten you?" "Not directly," I shook my head. "But he's clearly in a bad way, and I realize that my presence here only makes it worse. He can't move on as long as he sees me as the source of all his troubles." "But that's not fair!" Vanity was indignant. "You don't have to leave because of him." "I'm not leaving because of him," I objected gently. "I'm going for me, to start a new chapter in my life. I want to spend my remaining years enjoying peace, not fighting an endless war with my own son." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I understand, and I respect your decision, but we're going to miss you, especially Ezra." "I'll keep coming," I assured her, "and you can always come visit me in Devon. The beaches there are beautiful. Ezra will love it." "What about this house?" she asked, looking around the living room. "Are you going to sell it?" "No," I shook my head. "I'll leave it to Knox and Ezra. They'll be able to use it when they're of age. Until then, it'll just stand there. Maybe I'll rent it out to vacationers for the summer." "And Prentice?" she asked cautiously. "Will you tell him your decision?" "No," I said firmly. "Let him find out when I'm gone. It would be better for everyone." I spent the next few weeks preparing for the move, sorting through my belongings, packing what I wanted to take with me, giving away what I no longer needed. The process was unexpectedly therapeutic. Everything I picked up carried memories, some joyful, some sad. I was saying goodbye not only to home but to a certain phase of my life. Ezra and Knox often came over to help me. They were upset about my decision to leave but tried not to show it. "You have to come to my birthday party in September," Ezra said as she helped me pack my books. "Promise?" "I promise," I smiled. "I'll come for Christmas too." "Can we come to your house for summer vacation?" Knox asked. "I've never been to Devon." "Of course. I was glad they wanted to keep in touch. I'll look forward to seeing you." The day before I left, I visited Hilda's restaurant one last time as a local. Vanity had arranged a small farewell dinner for me, inviting only my closest friends. The restaurant was closed to other diners and the evening was warm and a little sad. After dinner, when the guests had gone, Vanity and I sat on the terrace watching the sunset. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "when you first asked me to open the restaurant, I thought you were just trying to get back at Prentice. But now I realize it was more than that." "Yes," I agreed. "Initially, revenge was the main motive. But that changed over time. I saw you blossom, saw your talent get the recognition it deserved, and that became more important than any revenge. Whatever your motive was, she smiled softly, I'm grateful to you. You changed my life, Orson. And you changed mine, I replied sincerely. You reminded me that even at 75, it's not too late to start something new, to take a risk, to change your life. We were silent for a moment, staring at the fading light of day. Ezra will be thrilled with the stock, Vanity finally said. She's already talking about going to culinary college after high school. She's as talented as her mother, I smiled. And stubborn. She'll make a great chef. Prentice will be furious, Vanity shook her head. He's still hoping she'll choose economics or law. He'll accept it, I said, though I didn't believe it myself. Or not. Either way, it's her life and her choice. And the next morning, I loaded the last of my things into the car and took one last look around the house that had been my home for over 40 years. The walls held so many memories. Prentice and Pearl's first steps, family dinners, Hilda's laughter, her last days. I knew I would miss this place, but I didn't regret my decision. Before I got into the car, I took an envelope out of my pocket and put it in the mailbox. It was a letter for Prentice, not an apology, but an explanation. I told him about my lottery winnings, my original plan for revenge, how things had changed over time. I didn't apologize or offer reconciliation. It was too late for that. But I wanted him to know the truth. The drive to Devon took almost the whole day. I made stops for breaks and snacks, enjoying the views of the English countryside. By late afternoon, I reached my new home, a small cottage on a cliff overlooking the sea. The sunset had colored the sky and water in shades of gold and purple, and I stood on the porch, breathing in the salty sea air. It was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. I didn't know what the future would bring, but I felt a strange calm. I'd done what I thought was right, helped Vanity realize her dream, secured a future for her grandchildren, taught Prentice a lesson, though not the one I'd originally hoped for. Perhaps the real victory was not in seeing my son's downfall, but in moving on my own, not letting bitterness and resentment define the remaining years of my life. I didn't feel the expected satisfaction from Prentice's problems, only sadness and regret that things had turned out this way. But at the same time, I felt that I had restored some kind of balance, some kind of justice. Not just for myself, but for Vanity and for Ezra, and even for Hilda's memory. I walked into my new home, ready to start a new life, without reconciliation with my son, but with a clear conscience and hope for the future.